Well, welcome back. Welcome to the workshop. This is where I make pieces of furniture, and a lot of you have followed me through the briquettes which I make out of my wood dust. It's a byproduct and it makes a fuel. In this video, we're going to get on with the bench and show you what we've been up to. Let's start with a little bit of a tidy up, which I've done, only a little bit. All of that worktop is there now. There's my stool that everybody loves. And this is the beech. I've already cut some up, which I'll show you now. This is a good example of why I'm cutting this boarding up. As you can see, it's touching the bench either end, and there's a gap under the middle, which isn't good. So it's got to be cut up for that reason. It's just not flat. And then this other piece has got problems with it too. It's got screw holes that are in it. It's got splits down here, just a B side, so it's just not very good there, and there's screws in it still, so yeah, not very good. So I'm cutting this down through the center of each joint, which is also going through the biscuits, and the biscuits are about 9 to 12 inches apart from each other, so I can cut through them and then decide how I'm going to cut each piece of wood up later, but just want to cut it up into pieces so that I can put it through the planer, thickness it, get all the varnish and stuff off it and all the rubbish off it, and that way then it's ready to be placed somewhere on the bench. Some of the grain and the colour on this beech matches up so well, I have to mark it up either end, put a pencil line down it. And you saw that little squiggle then, there's a screw sticking out of there, and I don't want that screw to affect the machinery or anything, so I'm not even going to risk just cutting around it. I'm okay there, but what I'm going to do is cut it out so that if the wood goes through the planer, or when the wood goes through the planer, there's no risk of it damaging the planer knives. And now I need to start stripping this down, but before I start stripping it down, I need to get some measurements and get a good idea of what's going on. So one of the things I do want in amongst all of this, and that's why I said I'm not sure whether I can have a drawer, is I do want to use these. I do want to use the record Holdfast, and I want to use them in a central position, so in the centre of the width, and I want a number of positions down the bench. So that's okay. But what I've got to watch is the vise going underneath. So I've got to think about where the vise goes, but I'll position the vise to do with the legs, with thinking about the legs, and thinking about that thing doing that. So I need about 4 inches from the end of the bench. Then I need that, so the hole will be there. But there's a certain amount of that that goes through the bench. Got to think about that. I'm not sure this drawer will happen. I will end up with this rail. I think I'll end up with another one of these rails across the front here, which is fine because that'll be like a dust board which I can keep bits and pieces on, and things can fall through the holes into this dust board. So that dust board will be put on after, and I'll make sure I can clean it easy. Might even make it so that it pulls out. We'll see. Right, first thing, let's get rid of these. So I want to show you the reason why these aren't very good, and the reason they aren't very good is because there is no support through here at all. Now I think that if they'd got a timber at the back and a timber this side and a timber above, you wouldn't have the play, and if you didn't have the play, it wouldn't be so bad. So I think I'm going to take these off and I'm going to keep them, and who knows, I might even get to use one for something. I actually like the little Sjöbergs small micro bench things that they make for bench tops, which are about 5 inches thick, tall, deep. I actually quite like the look of those. So could I use this and that one in those? Probably. Let's get these things off. So there's no fixings under here at all, you just have to wind them out. But look at just how much this block of wood moves around as you're taking it out. They just wobble all over the place, but I can sort that out later. So I've got two of them exactly the same, and in there is a fitting. So is there Is there a bolt on the back? Ugh. A nut on the back. Let's take those off and put them back onto here and keep those together. I'm just going to put a bit of oil down there. I think looking at these, there's just too much play in the holes. I'm going to put the bolts in there before I tighten it up. Let's show you, let me show you how I've done this on this bench, because I never wanted all the holes in the bench. I don't like all the holes in the bench, it bothers me, but they are useful. So I want to show you my Holdfast method that's worked well for me, and it's good if you don't want any holes in the bench, and this is it. You have these collars that fit around the stem, which is fine, which is great. It saves damage in the wood and all sorts, which is great. And you have these underneath. So, and what I've done in this case is I've actually got a big block of wood underneath. But recessing these in is something I've never seen anybody else do. And it just means that you've got to cover it. Now, I didn't do a brilliant job of these because I just did one and then I did another. That doesn't fit there, and that one doesn't fit there. And you're going to ask, why have you done this? And because it's not a perfect circle. What I would do now is I would route out a perfect circle and make it so that the disc fitted in wherever. I do like the idea of pressing a knot so that you know, and I've done that shape to it. Look at the shape. I've done that shape so that it lifts up so you can easily get it out. And it drops back in. And the other thing I do with these, let me show you. The other thing I do with these is when I'm cramping something, say I'm going to cramp that down, I put these upside down so that the back in the middle of this gets a bit indented, but it's another way of protecting your work, because these things do, look at this. They do make a mess, can make a mess of your wood. So put it in there, put that like that, cramp that down, that's solid, that's great. So I'm having these, as I say, down the middle of the bench. So I store them on the end of the bench, which is useful, and they are record 145, but I've actually got some marples, much rarer ones, marples 145. And so I think I'm going to have 2 of these on the bench and 3 of the collars. I've got 3 of everything else for that. So 3 down the bench and 2 actually on the end of the bench, just like this is here. And see how that goes, something like that. So a bit of storage on the end. So that's a must. I know a lot of you guys use SketchUp and AutoCAD and all sorts these days. I'm just scribbling some dimensions down here so I've got them, whether I'm at home or in the workshop. I'll be able to just pick this sheet up, work out whatever's going on, and it won't stop me moving forward. I won't have to wait till the next day. Now I'm going to move on to drawing the table height. I'm not worried about the length and the depth just yet. I just want to get some of the heights right, because this Holdfast depends on the height of the bench, so I've got to get that in place. So if I sort height out first, it makes sense to me. So I'm just going to scribble a few notes down here, just some rough sketches. This isn't any finished sketch at all, and I won't do a proper drawing. I'll just do scribbles and then I'll supersede it. But yeah, this is the thing to do. It makes so much sense. And I do need to think about the thickness of the beech that I've got in front of me there, and also need to think that the height of the bench needs to go up, and I don't want to add it at the bottom of the foot. I want to add it in the build. So yeah, this is worth doing. I've got a couple of crafty things I'm going to do, and it will make so much sense. It'll be super strong. It's going to be a good one. So I've got 225 from the top. I've got 195 from the top. So if I go, I'm trying to work this out. You're wondering why I'm doing this. I'm trying to work this out to get the position of this rail. Or before I take it all apart, I want to know where that, if that rail is too high or too low if I put a top on it. Go from there down, 195. Ooh. So I've got, that's going to go in between there and there. So I can go, it's to a thickness of those. Let's get another thickness of that. Because that's going to be the top, and this is going to be in between there and the top. So can I go from there? Yes, I've got 220 mil. So that rail is in a good height. So that's good. So that can stay there. That's very good. That's very good. Does that make sense to you? Does that make sense? One of these is going in between here and there, and the other's going on the top, because I'm only adding an inch to the top surface of this. So that's then, because it's that high, that's going to clear that. The draw's got to go. The draw's got to go, so that's okay. I could probably use the draw for something else. Okay, this is good. This is good. We're getting there. I found the vice out. I bought it obviously second hand. It's without the dog, and it was reduced massively because it hadn't got the dog. So keep your eyes out for these. Had it a few years. I think it was about 30 or 40 pounds, and I think I paid about £6 for that. So bargain. But these pieces of wood, I'm not ready to restore it now, but if I took these pieces of wood off now, that can be firewood. And then it needs a bit of cleaning up. Do that later. But I can now strip that down a bit closer. And the downside of these old vices and all sorts is these are held in with an Allen key. And I just can't find one that fits. I don't know why. I've got a few Imperial. I've got metric. The axe comes out. It helps occasionally. And this isn't a bad way of doing it. If you have problems undoing a screw that are doing in this sort of position and you can't get it out, just get the wood out the way. That'll take the tension off the screw. You'll be able to release the screw later, hopefully. So we'll see how this goes. But again, firewood. So that's the reason I'm doing this. There you go. Quick and easy. These are Imperial, I think. Anyhow, they turn, so that's good. I'll have to find an Allen key that fits, and if I can reuse those. I'm not used to going from the inside out. Let me show you some of the others. Like this one, for example, I've screwed into there, and I screw through there. Same on here. So I'm not used to having the machine screw. Same on all of them, actually. I'm not used to it, but hey-ho. If they're the screws and they fit, I'll use them. Well, I'm getting there. There's just a couple more things before we go. Two more things. One of them is this. Let me show you this. Don't think that we're like the first generation to use, say, rubbish wood to make a bench and do all of that. And these are two headboards that somebody's given me, and they are oak and they've been veneered. So this sort of thing of using not particularly the best wood but trying to pretty it up has been going on for centuries. These are going to be cut and down, and I might actually be able to use some of this. It's definitely oak. There's some planks there with veneer. There's some nails in the end here, so I've got to be careful. So if I can cut some good wood out of that, then I might be able to use that on the front of the bench there, drawers and things and doors. That's what I'm thinking at the moment. That would be quite nice. So I'm going to cut that up. And while I'm cutting that up between now and next week, have a good week. Enjoy your week. January's, it's improving. It's getting lighter at 4 o'clock now, which is great. Where would you have started with this bench? What would you have done first? I know that the bench holdfast might have thrown some of you. Why is he doing it holdfast? That's just to get the height sorted in my head. and the height depends on other things. What would you do first? Where would you start? What would be your direction? Anyhow, like, share, subscribe, all the rest. It makes such a difference, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.